Welcome back to Everyday Eats with Michelle. This week we're going to do a little cheesecake experiment. I'm going to take my tried and true typical vanilla cheesecake recipe I make for Chris every year for Thanksgiving, and I wanted to make a candy cane cheesecake for Christmas. Did not exactly turn out the way I wanted it to, as you can clearly see. Not exactly sure what happened, but I'm going to show you the process. Maybe if there are bakers out there in YouTube land, you can tell me what happened. I don't know. To start, my recipe always calls for 8 whole graham crackers. I usually use cinnamon. This time I just substituted chocolate because I figured chocolate peppermint, that's a good combo. I also throw in a couple extra graham crackers just because I want to push the crust up the side as well. We're going to throw in a tablespoon of sugar, pulse these together. Again, so far the only change, I've used chocolate graham crackers instead of cinnamon graham crackers. Okay, once these are nicely crumbled up, we're going to add in our melted butter. Recipe calls for 5 tablespoons of unsalted butter. I always add in an extra tablespoon to account for that extra graham crackers. Again, nothing different other than the fact that I use chocolate graham crackers so far. So once everything is all nicely combined, my graham crackers are nice and moist, I'm going to take a 9-inch springform pan and we're going to brush some melted butter all over the bottom and then up the sides as well. Even if you're not going to push the crust up the sides, make sure you put the butter up the sides as well, just to help prevent the actual cheesecake from sticking, even if you don't have that crust there. So once this is all nicely buttered up, we can go ahead and start adding in our crust. Start slow, less is more. I used to just dump it in and I would end up with this really thick, uneven crust. Don't do it that way. A little bit at a time, pat it down, fill in holes where needed. You will achieve a much more even crust this way. I have learned over the years. I'm not a huge baker, but that I have learned. Okay, so once our base crust is done, what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn it on its side. It's going to help the crust stick because you're not fighting gravity. Brush a little bit more butter in there. And then we'll just press down our graham cracker crust until our sides are all nicely covered. And we've got a relatively nice looking chocolate crust right now. Fill in any holes, and then this is going to go in a 325-degree oven for about 12 to 13 minutes. For our filling, you're going to need 5 8-ounce packages of cream cheese at room temperature. Sometimes I forget to put them out at room temperature. Really what you can do, take the foil packages of cream cheese and put them on the stovetop while your crust is baking. Because your stovetop is warm, right, from heating up your crust. It's going to help soften up your cream cheese instead of shoving it in the microwave. So we'll get that all creamed together. We're going to scrape it down about halfway through because as you could see, some of it's coming up the sides, which means it's not fully getting incorporated. We'll let that go for about another 30 to 60 seconds until it's all nice and whipped up. That looks fantastic. We'll do another little scrape down. That's going to be kind of the theme for today. Whenever we add something, or if things aren't looking quite like they're getting incorporated, stop it and scrape it down. Now I've got 10.5 ounces of sugar. Yes, I weighed it. You should too. We're going to add that in 2 batches, along with 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. We're only going to add that in the first time. So put in half your sugar, let it go on about medium speed until things are nicely incorporated, and then, yep, you guessed it, let's scrape down the sides, get things poked out of our beater, just to make sure everything gets incorporated. Because if it doesn't, that usually affects your results when you're baking. Got to make sure everything fully joins the party. So we'll put in the rest of our sugar. And then we'll let that go until everything is incorporated. You'll kind of notice that it's getting a little bit fluffy, which is what we're looking for. And now we're going to, again, get everything nicely scraped off so it's all incorporated. And then we're going to add in something a little fun, a little bit of sour cream, 1/3 cup of sour cream. It's going to help with our nice moist texture of our cheesecake. 2 teaspoons of lemon juice, which is normal. And then 2 teaspoons, instead of vanilla like I typically do for a regular cheesecake, I did 2 teaspoons of peppermint extract because this is a candy cane cheesecake and I want it to be minty. That may be part of where things went wrong. I don't really know if it affects it that much, but it's okay. Get that incorporated, a little taste test. Not as minty as I wanted it, so I kind of freeform added some more peppermint extract. So that may have been a bad thing. I don't really know. We'll get that incorporated, and now we're going to add in 2 egg yolks, just the egg yolks so far. We'll blend those in until they're fully incorporated. Scrape it down. And now we're going to add in 6 whole eggs, 2 at a time. I like to crack them into a bowl all at once. Makes it easier to just kind of pour them in. I know it seems weird. It seems like it's going to be difficult, but it's actually not. They just kind of like plop themselves in. So we're going to get those incorporated. Again, we're going to scrape down. And then we're going to keep adding our eggs 2 at a time until all of the eggs are incorporated into our filling. So again, 6 whole eggs, 2 at a time, scrape down in between. You're going to notice that your batter seems kind of loose, and that's okay. It's supposed to. This is exactly what it's supposed to look like. It's what it's always looked like for all my other cheesecakes. A little final taste test. And yep, we got enough mint. Life is good. So, I thought it would be a good idea to crush up some candy canes and put those in the filling. And I'm also going to add some red food coloring to try to get that candy cane swirl. So I've got about 1/3 of my batter. And I'm just going to put a few drops of red food coloring into my batter as we go. I kind of want to get a nice deep red, like a candy cane. This didn't 100% work, so I'm just going to keep adding a few drops here and there until I achieve kind of like a candy cane color. Took a little more food coloring than I thought it would, but this is looking pretty good. So now I'm going to add those crushed up candy cane pieces. Some of them are actually kind of big. I was looking for, you know, some nice candy cane crunch on the inside. Guess what? That didn't happen. There are absolutely no chunks of candy cane in this cheesecake. At least not noticeable. So my guess is they melted, which may have been what messed with the recipe. I don't really know. So I'm going to take my cheesecake filling, pour that down into my prepared crust. And as I'm doing this, I'm kind of realizing, you know, I'm not going to get the swirl that I wanted this way. I probably should have added half of my vanilla batter or white batter first, a little bit of red, swirled it, and then repeated it. Because this way I'm getting kind of a nice swirly pattern on top. But as you may have seen from the beginning of the video, I got absolutely no swirl on the inside. So, lesson learned, I will do that differently next time. And that's okay. Like I said, I'm not a baker, and that's fine. So, now that we got our swirliness happening, we're going to throw this into a 500-degree oven for 10 minutes. After that 10 minutes, you're not going to open the door. You're just going to reduce the heat to 200 degrees, let it go for about 1.5 hours until you reach an internal temperature of 150 degrees. So far this is looking good. This is out of my oven. I got 150 degrees. We're going to throw this on a wire rack to let it cool for about 2 to 3 hours. At this point in time, I still have hope that this is going to turn out okay. This is after it cooled for 2.5, 3 hours. I've got the dreaded crack. It's definitely pulled away from the sides a little bit, and I don't know if you can tell, but it's also sunken down in a little bit. Not 100% sure what has caused the sinking. I mean, the crack could be from the thermometer that I put in there. That's happened a couple times. That's not, that's not new. The sinking in and the pulling away from the sides is definitely different. My hope for this turning out great is fading. So we're going to throw this in the fridge overnight. And now, the next day, I'm going to crush up some more candy canes. I want to have a nice little festive candy cane topping. So just take a meat mallet, a rolling pin, whatever you got, crush up some candy canes. All right, so I pulled this out of the fridge. It's been a day. It looks like it's shrunken in even a little bit more on the sides. The crack is hideous. You can kind of tell now just how much it's sunken down in. The crust looks weird. It looks very moist. Very not what I'm looking for. So I'm not 100% sure what went wrong at this point. I don't know if it's the peppermint extract, if it's adding the candy canes, I'm not really sure. But I'm just going to go ahead. We're going to get this looking as festive as possible. So I'm going to take my crumbled up, crushed up candy canes, sprinkle those down over the top. Maybe I can somehow manage to hide the crack, maybe not. And we're just going to go with it. We're going to make it as pretty as we can. And then I guess we're just going to give it a final little taste test just to see if this turned out as candy cane-like as I hoped in my brain that would do. Let me tell you, cutting the first piece out did not work. The crust is a moist mess. I did not get the swirl I wanted. That's okay. It ended up tasting okay. It's a little more dense than I've ever achieved with a cheesecake. So again, I'm not sure what went wrong. If you're a baker and you know how I can fix this, please drop me a comment below. We can revisit this again in the future. But if you like this video, if you like doing the experiments, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. And have a wonderful Christmas.